from Marshall, Texas,
fighting out of Catskill, New York, Mike Tyson.
One of the biggest fights in boxing history would have been the fight between Big George Foreman and Iron Mike Tyson. Foreman is the oldest world heavyweight boxing champion of all time. Tyson holds the record for being the youngest world heavyweight boxing champion ever. Both two-time world champions are known for their tremendous punching power. When Mike Tyson was in his prime in the late 1980s, George Foreman began his surprising comeback after 10 years away from the ring. In those days, Foreman didn't have enough good wins in his comeback career to face Tyson in the world title fight.
I had the heavyweight championship of the world. It was stolen from me. Now I got to work hard to get it back. And I'm not going to stop until I get it.
When George Foreman was going from win to win, the fight between Foreman and Tyson was more likely to happen in the early 1990s. At that time, there was talk of organizing the fight. George Foreman said after knocking out gentleman Jerry Coon in the second round that he would knock out Mike Tyson in the same fashion in 1 or 2 rounds.
It's business. If he ever fights Tyson, he won't be able to have an arena big enough to put the people in.
In June 16, 1990, George Foreman and Mike Tyson fought on the same night, but not against each other. Foreman knocked out Addison Rodriguez in the second round, and Tyson knocked out Henry Tillman in the first round. If the Foreman vs Tyson fight had taken place in those days, how would the fight have turned out? Let's think about this by looking at some other fights. In 1991, George Foreman fought against Evander the Real Deal Holyfield in the World Championship fight. Holyfield won the fight after 12 rounds by decision of the judges. Known for his granite chin, Foreman could take Holyfield's ferocious punches, but what if those punches had been delivered by Mike Tyson? Tyson was very good at slipping punches, although he wasn't quite as good in the early 1990s as he was in his prime. Tyson had a really good chin. Donovan Razor Ruddock was a feared fighter at the time. His knockout of Michael Dynamite Dogs was terrifying. However, Mike Tyson was able to take Ruddock's punches and defeat him twice in 1991. Tyson had a clear hand speed advantage over Foreman, but Foreman was bigger and likely some stronger. George Foreman destroyed world champion Smoking Joe Frazier in 1973 in just 2 rounds, even though Frazier had incredibly strong will. Frazier, like Tyson, was a forward-moving infighter. However, there were differences in styles of Frazier and Tyson. Tyson hit very hard with both hands, while Frazier was more of a left hook expert. Tyson was also able to slip punches more versatile than Frazier. Tyson could switch to a southpaw stance when he was fighting inside. Tyson didn't punch all the time, but looked for opportunities for counterpunches. So the style of Frazier wasn't quite the same as Tyson's peekaboo style. Of course, Foreman was a different boxer in the early 1990s than he was in the 1970s. As an older, Foreman has lost some of his speed, but he fought smarter and was more relaxed in the ring. After being released from prison, Mike Tyson collected 2 world title belts. Again, it would have been possible to organize the fight between Foreman and Tyson, but it never happened. At that time, Mike Tyson was no longer at his best as a boxer, but he was still hard-hitting and very dangerous. Foreman's age began to show a little bit in his fighting, although he still boxed very well against the younger fighters. It is also interesting to imagine the Prime vs Prime fantasy fight, where George Foreman from the first Joe Frazier fight or Ken Norton fight would face Mike Tyson from the Trevor Berbick fight or Michael Spinks fight. That would be something absolutely amazing. Why the fight between George Foreman and Mike Tyson never happened. There is a story that says Mike Tyson's trainer Gus D'Amato told the young Tyson that the Foreman never beat George Foreman. An example of this is Foreman's 2 knockout wins against Joe Frazier. This may have stuck with Tyson's mind, even though this estimate had been made of the young Foreman. D'Amato hardly thought that Foreman could ever be a possible opponent for Tyson. When George Foreman made a comeback, it took him about 3 years to become a serious contender, so the fight against Mike Tyson wasn't realistic in those years. Foreman's goal was to become the heavyweight champion of the world again. It seemed that he wanted to face whoever was the world champion. In 1991, world champion was Evander Holyfield. There was also a period of 3 years when the fight between Foreman and Tyson wasn't possible because of Tyson's prison sentence. Also, one factor was that Foreman no longer wanted to make deals with Tyson's promoter, Don King. George Foreman said in 2019 that he didn't want to fight Tyson. Who knows, maybe he was just being polite. Foreman has also said in 2023 that Mike Tyson was the most spectacular athlete he has ever seen. Power and speed, like someone from another planet. Big George and Iron Mike seem to have a deep respect for each other.